Chapter 1146, A Real Charlatan. As she passed through the illusory door, Trissy hid herself and jumped down from the cliff at the entrance, towards the dark valley below. The secret mausoleum that originated from Blood Emperor Tudor was hidden here. During the descent, Trissy's body was as light as a feather. She lost most of her weight, but her speed was in no way slow. None of the remaining guards noticed that she had sneaked in. Just as Trissy was approaching her target, she heard a voice say, "Concealment is prohibited here." Trissy's figure instantly appeared out of nowhere, and in the area above the towering mausoleum in the dark valley, there was a man who had appeared at some point in time. This man had a long, rectangular face with a white hairband on his head. He had a mustache that curled up around his mouth, and his brows were extremely thick, setting off his relatively large eyes. He was dressed in formal attire and wore a cloak. The tips of his shoes were extremely long, and his attire didn't seem to match the times. He was the demigod who supported George III, Prince Grove. On the head of this sequence 3 Chaos Hunter, there was a crown made of thorns. Pure light constantly gathered into the crown, interweaving into a C. Sealed Artifact 036. Klein swam beneath the Tussock River when an image suddenly appeared in his mind, just as he led his marionette, Konas and Anuni, through the illusory door. A black cathedral stood in front of them with its spacious door opened, revealing a man in a pair of dungarees, a gentleman in a formal suit and top hat, a lady with frilly designs along her sleeves, and a lady whose dress formed flowers with laces. They were suspended in midair, motionless. Ka. Black ravens circled the top of the cathedral, letting out heart-stopping cries. Without making any guesses, Klein felt like he had fallen into a crack on a frozen lake. His body turned cold as his hair stood on end. Countless thoughts surged in his mind as they collectively shouted out a name. Zeratul. In the blink of an eye, Klein instinctively made a decision. He planned to switch locations with his marionettes from the outside world and directly leave the cathedral in front of him. Clearly, he had encountered a miracle. He didn't enter George III's secret mausoleum after passing through the illusory door. Instead, he had come to a baffling place. In the next second, he discovered that the spirit-body threads that were connected to his marionettes had been severed. They were rapidly floating upwards towards the interior of the pitch-black cathedral. If it wasn't for his intuition that exceeded his own level, allowing him to detect danger ahead of time, he definitely wouldn't have been able to react in time. He definitely would have been hung up and become a member of the marionettes. He didn't have time to think too much about it. He quickly controlled his spirit-body threads and collected them all, connecting them to himself, forming one circle after another. This allowed him to temporarily extricate himself from the danger, but it also made him lose his marionettes, Konas, and Anuni in just a second. The 2 marionettes' necks suddenly tightened as they were lifted up by an invisible hand before being hung up in the cathedral's interior. Together with the original corpses, they swayed in the wind and produced voices that were different but said the exact same thing. "Welcome back." In Memorial Square, the imagined King George III was still giving a speech. "I will further lower the wealth requirements needed for election eligibility. I will hand over even more rights to the House of Commons." Although the people didn't understand why there was such a development in the speech, it sounded good to them. These are all bills that have been approved by the House of Lords, but there's no need to tell the public during this speech. It's like the king is emphasizing that he will definitely follow these bills in the future. Audrey was puzzled, but she couldn't come up with a convincing explanation. In the dark and majestic secret ruins, number 1 in the outskirts of Backland, the real George III had already worn a black crown and consumed the potion. His body was transforming towards the shadow of order, extending in a magical state. As for the 9 mausoleums, they were the islands in the sea of nothingness. They were the components of his entire rule. As for the people who were chanting Emperor George III at the same time during the ritual, there were like countless numbers of lighthouses. Together, they anchored this ruler of Lone, East Balem, and the Rorsted Archipelago, making him completely transcend reality and become a part of the shadow of order. During this process, George III's thoughts wandered uncontrollably, as though they were being torn apart. The Secret Order's Zeratul actually contacted me directly, hoping to provide me with help. He said that he saw some of Jayaman Sparrow's thoughts from the Capim case, the attack on Ailment Maiden, the silencing of Crazy Captain, and Kona's Kilgore's disappearance. And his divination results made him cooperate with me, offering to help me guard a mausoleum. There, he waited for Jayaman Sparrow to take the initiative to walk to him because of his own goals and the law of convergence of beyonder characteristics. He also said that the most important thing to do when dealing with a qualified demigod of the seer pathway is to be patient and determined. What a charlatan! He even brought Abomination Sua. I used my powers to sign a contract with them. Together with the helpers I invited from the Twilight Hermit Order, as well as Grove, who wields a Grade 0 sealed artifact. Even if most of the demigods of the military and royal family are fighting at the front lines or protecting Backland, I don't have to worry about the ritual being destroyed. Unless a true deity descends into the real world. And that's impossible. So, I originally wanted to use this opportunity to lure out any resistance, but in the end, I decided to use this opportunity to directly advance. Heh, since Grove still doesn't know about these hidden cards, well, he has no right to know. In less than 2 minutes, I'll become an eternal god, the Black Emperor who rules over reality. Ka. In the dark world with the ravens cawing, the corpses hanging from the black top of the church descended and passed through the main door. Their eyes were locked onto Klein, who was outside. Almost at the same time, a figure slowly but firmly outlined itself in midair. Without caring about what it was, Klein quickly snapped his fingers while maintaining the special state of his spirit body threads. Puh! A red flame surged out from his wallet and instantly enveloped him. The flame was quickly extinguished, and Klein remained where he was, unable to leap out. He didn't show any signs of being depressed, as he immediately activated creeping hunger to attempt to teleport. Klein instantly turned transparent as he appeared again, unable to take a single step. His origin and destination had strangely been connected. At that moment, the figure in midair had already taken form. He was dressed in gorgeous clothes, with long chestnut-colored curly hair, blue eyes, high nose bridge, and thin lips. He was none other than the Roselle Gustav from when he was an emperor. He looked down at Klein as countless illusory symbols appeared in his eyes. Klein's mind instantly swelled as he was injected with a large amount of unknown knowledge. His head felt like it was exploding in an instant while his other thoughts were completely occupied, so much so that he couldn't even lift a finger. Instinctively, he allowed that knowledge to split up and become injected into hundreds of worms of spirit. This allowed him to regain his ability to control his body as he quickly grabbed the space ahead of him with his right hand. His arm suddenly sank, and then he suddenly pulled back. When the marionettes passed through the cathedral's door and began their attacks, another 2 figures appeared in midair, dragging out a scaleless, silvery white tail. As he released his right hand, a giant serpent appeared in this dark kingdom. His eyes were bright red and cold, and his body was covered in patterns and symbols. There were countless wheels in the details. Snake of Fate. Actually, this wasn't something that Klein could summon out from the historical void. Instead, it was Will Ossipton descending with the burning of the paper crane after using the Yesterday Once More charm. Klein had just used flaming jump moments ago to seek help from the Snake of Fate. And the reason why he wanted to grab at something was to conceal his true intentions. It was to prevent the opposing angel from discovering the location of the Snake of Fate, putting Dr. Aaron's family in danger. This wasn't like how he had previously dealt with Ammon's avatar back then, as he had no confidence in eliminating all the clues. Therefore, he had discussed with Will in advance on how to deal with such situations. Fortunately, the intent Will Ossipton expressed indicated that the truth of the summoning from before hadn't been exposed. At that moment, the gigantic snake of Mercury rose up and bit its tail, turning into a mysterious and exaggerated wheel. In midair, 2 figures appeared on both sides of Roselle's projection. One of them was Queen Mystic Bernadette, whose real body was in an intense battle with sequence, one hand of Order William Augustus, the other was formed from pure light, and a pair of shining wings grew on his back. It was obviously at the level of an angel. Suddenly, the two angel projections that appeared quickly vanished. The attacks they directed at Klein and the controlled marionettes retreated back into the cathedral and were hung up again. Konas and Inuni walked out one after another. With him, they passed backward through the illusory door and left the world with resonating coin, appearing beneath the tussock river. Snake of Fate, reboot. The giant serpent's figure vanished as well. Without any hesitation, Klein activated teleportation and passed through countless spirit world creatures to another secret mausoleum. He used the remaining blood to outline the symbol and opened the illusory door. This time, he entered the interior and saw a solemn and dark mausoleum. He summoned the sea god scepter and released a terrifying lightning storm, again and again, destroying the target. Then, he turned around and left the scene. Everything went so smoothly, just like a dream. Yes, a beautiful dream. Klein, who could always maintain his lucidity in dreams, had realized that he was in a real dream created by someone else the moment he entered the ruins where the secret mausoleum was.